Before we wander off into the warm, snoring arms of history, do me and the algorithmic overlords that feed my tiny digital ego a favor. Tap that like button, like it's the snooze alarm, and hit subscribe, the way your cat hits your face at 3 a.m. for snacks. Don't worry, you can ghost me later if that commitment gives you hives. No guilt trips, no medieval penance, just pure one-click romance. Deep breath, one more. Let the day flake away like stale pastry off last week's croissant. Your fan, that's not a fan. It's a night breeze rolling off a row of crooked thatch-topped rooftops. Your blanket? Congratulations, it's now a medieval wool cloak that smells faintly of sheep and last season's gossip. We're not merely reading history tonight, we're tiptoeing into it in socks so thick even the village gossip can't hear us squeak. Go slack. Seriously, limp noodles only. Feel the mattress hug your shoulder blades like the world's laziest chiropractor. Unclench your jaw, you're not auditioning for a statue. Let your hands drape like questionable laundry over the sides of the bed, and let those feet flop outward like fish on market day. There's nowhere to be, nobody to impress, least of all me. I'm a cloud of Wi-Fi, and nothing urgent except the next breath gliding out of you like a monk sneaking extra biscuits from the abbey kitchen. Eyes closed. Good. It is not 2:35 a.m. anymore. Clocks were optional back then anyway. Time to hit play on the Middle Ages. Director's cut. It never begins with Cupid doing donuts in a field of tulips. It starts with a stare, half a second too long, half a degree too warm in a wheat field, so dry even the scarecrows are praying for moisturizer. Words? Nah, words leave fingerprints. Silence, on the other hand, is the medieval equivalent of incognito mode, except everybody still sees your browser history. A single smile could label you looser than yesterday's porridge. One courteous nod to her dad, suddenly you're sniffing around like a truffle pig with unholy intentions. In this neighborhood, sex isn't a hobby, it's Chernobyl with extra hay. Love? That's a luxury item. Lust? That's the bubonic plague with better marketing. So here you are, 25, sharing a one-room cedar-scented fragrance combo of parents, goats, and existential dread. You've witnessed what happens when the cooper's son and the milkmaid decide to test drive romance behind the barn. Next day his mom is ugly crying into turnips and the milkmaid is shipped off to that aunt who lives suspiciously close to the local convent. The sermon brand is fornication, Latin syllables heavy enough to bruise your eardrums. Sin was the starter pack. The expansion pack included shame, public whippings, and lifetime reruns of people mumbling your name like it's a curse word. Yet hormones laugh in the face of policy. So yes, you meet a girl by the river. She gifts you contraband bread, and a smile worth more than your annual barley yield. And bam, you've got 200 eyeballs stalking your next breath. Official doctrine: sex is for propagation, not PlayStation. Enjoy it too much and the local priest practically dropkicks you into purgatory. If you're female and visibly interested, congratulations, you're a portal for demons, the human equivalent of free Wi-Fi for Satan. So every village grandma transforms into the NSA. The men stare too, but with plausible deniability pre-installed. Tomorrow you'll kneel on splinter-grade pews while Father Longwind sermonizes about chastity like it's the latest fashion trend. You will amend so hard your teeth rattle. Partly because Dad's side-eye could cut granite, and partly because the bishop's scribe is lurking like a medieval TMZ reporter. Anyway, congrats, you're married now. Don't bother searching for the love song. It's been replaced by the sound of a quill signing a contract. Two poor folk pooling resources like a buy one get one coupon for survival. Theory claims matrimony sanctifies nucky. Reality hands you a yawn and says good luck with the paper-thin walls. Evening routine. You shuffle in smelling like a bonfire wrestled a sheep. She pokes the embers, hair falling like rebel strands across her cheeks. Zero pillow talk. Space is a premium and intimacy is measured in how politely you nod. Duty calls. Produce mini-humans. However, breeding season doubles as anxiety season because if her belly doesn't bloom, the rumor mill does. Miraculously, blame never lands on the guy. Shocker. When pregnancy finally rolls around, childbirth is essentially cage fighting with death, while the midwife waves boiling water like it's holy armor. Survival is a coin toss. But hey, the priest keeps urging be fruitful because he's not the one doing the fruiting. Spoiler, marital consent isn't invented yet. Husbandly rights come bundled with the wedding loaf. Some nights he's gentle, other nights he's half-pickled on ale and takes creative liberties. If he kicks the bucket in a freak plow incident, you level up to widow time on unlocking land ownership and solo decision-making. But the village hates DLC characters, so they patch you back into marriage ASAP, preferably to a man who treats romance like turnip farming. Fast forward to you at 13, braided like a loaf of challah and guarded like crown jewels. Virginity equals dowry coin, the hottest crypto in town. Lose it pre-wedding and you're basically soft-blocked from society. Double lose with pregnancy? That's exile on the Shame Express. Your kid tattooed illegitimate in invisible ink only everyone can read. Meanwhile, the pulpit has transformed into medieval Netflix's most binge-worthy horror show about lust. Monks rock thorn belts like edgy teenagers, nuns sleep on floors colder than their romantic prospects, and everybody confesses annually whether they sinned or just thought about it, because thought crime subscriptions are mandatory since 1215. Drag the camera back to you, the notorious look holder. One raised brow from the priest and you're sweating harder than a night in August. The word bastard ricochets around your skull like a mace. Options: marry her, awkward, especially if you're already hitched. Deny everything, popular, low effort, high risk, or join the clergy and master the fine art of hypocrisy. Punishments scale with chromosome and paycheck. Bachelor gents pay fines or do a quick penance montage. Women collect public shaming punch cards. Priests, a quick transfer to another parish. Clerical witness protection. Everyone else, please enjoy your complimentary exile or decorative scar tissue. Yet people keep touching each other like rules are just decorative calligraphy. Midwives see it all. Panic, bruises, suspicious herbal teas. Sometimes they hush, sometimes they snitch. Always they navigate a moral minefield wearing splintery clogs. Infanticide lurks on the dark mode side of desperation. If discovered, it unleashes communal terror faster than you can say which trial. Trials are swift, verdicts brutal, empathy on permanent vacation. Zoom out. Nobles treat consent like optional DLC. Peasant brides fear right of first night, real or rumor. Clergy preach purity but juggle secret tunnels and maternity scandals. Power's golden rule: if you have it, the rules become helpful suggestions. Men's sins earn tavern stories, women's earn lifelong branding. Canon law codifies the double standard with bureaucratic flair. Fines for him, exile for her. Even queens get side-eyed by the throne if baby timelines don't line up. Meanwhile, the king's 10 little extras are hailed as proof of virility, not evidence for Maury. Marriage itself? Think Craigslist barter deal with extra candles. Your wedding night is basically an unskippable cutscene. Aunt Squad waits outside for Bloody Sheet DLC. No blood? Returns policy in effect. Fancy castles don't upgrade your emotional firmware, they just add fleas in velvet packaging. Courtly love steps in to sprinkle glitter on repression. Knights write bad poetry. Ladies distribute handkerchiefs like limited edition merchandise. Everyone sighs theatrically. Actual hanky-panky risks decapitation or lifelong chanting. Enter the troubadour, the medieval Spotify playlist with legs. He swaps gossip for dinner, crafting metaphors thick enough to butter bread. Ladies swoon, lords grumble. Everyone pretends not to understand the subtext while absolutely understanding the subtext. Eventually politics, war, and the Black Death reroute the funding, and the poor bard ends up singing for lukewarm stew and one depressed goat. Meanwhile, monasteries weaponize loneliness into mystic fan fiction. Desire is reskinned as holy yearning. Monks write steamy love letters to Jesus because at least he won't gossip in the cloister. Some lose themselves in ecstasy, others just lose their sanity. The line is blurrier than parchment in a rainstorm. Back among the turnip class, romance is utilitarian. You flirt with goat math, swap carved spoons, and hope your partner's snoring syncs with the rain. Adultery upgrades embarrassment to corporal punishment, and every baby born out of wedlock resets the family's social credit score to mud. Yet through plagues, penance, and pew policing, love keeps sneaking into corners. A thumb brushed over calloused knuckles, a crust of bread saved, a name whispered into straw mattresses. History writes the rules, humanity doodles in the margins, and that dear half-asleep time traveler is just the prologue. Keep your cloak handy. The next chapters involve jousts, jokes, and at least one runaway lute solo that nobody asked for. Stay tuned, or better yet, stay drowsy. So while you're busy dodging side-eye at the well, the village grapevine is out here sprinting the 100-meter dash. Every eyebrow twitch you've ever made is now community property.
cataloged like suspicious poultry. One sigh in the wrong key, and suddenly you're that guy. The cautionary tale parents recite when they want their teenagers to stay home churning butter instead of churning hormones. Meanwhile, our freshly married couple is discovering that happily ever after in medieval terms translates to congratulations, you've unlocked shared body heat and a lifetime of joint tax audits by the parish. He's exhausted, she's terrified, and the bed creaks like it's auditioning for a haunted house soundtrack. They whisper zero sweet nothings because Great Aunt Agnes snores 10 feet away and has ears like a fruit bat. Romance, right? The calendar flips, and pity's sake, the belly check begins. Every month that passes without visible roundness turns the gossip volume up a notch. The baker's wife coughs the word barren into her apron with the commitment of a Shakespearean actor. Midwives start handing out unsolicited fertility tips involving questionable herbs and even more questionable moon phases. Nobody suspects the husband's swimmers might be lost at sea. Nope, clearly the wife's womb is a malfunctioning butter churn. Science, when at last she does conceive, nobody breaks out champagne, mostly because grapes are busy being raisins for winter. Instead, the whole village leans forward like it's season finale night. Childbirth arrives in 18 rated R hours of shrieking steam and enough bodily fluids to qualify as a small inland sea. If mother and baby survive, the neighbors nod approvingly, offer a prayer, and immediately pivot to pressure cooking her for the next one. If she doesn't survive, well, there's a brand new widower on the market, ladies. Form an orderly queue. Back on the single women front, the virginity stock market is more volatile than crypto. A dropped kerchief? Scandal. A laugh that lasts longer than 3 syllables? Clearly flirting with Beelzebub. And yet the ledger of hypocrisy remains robust. Men get a fine and a pat on the back. Women get a lifelong identity crisis and maybe a sackcloth couture show in the town square. 2 standards for the price of none. Slide over to the high-rent district and watch Lord Entitlement stroll the halls of his drafty castle like he personally invented gravity. If he wants the scullery maid, he whistles. If he wants the cooper's niece, he whistles in a slightly different pitch. Consent? That's a murmured prayer said by people without last names. The church, busy perfecting the art of strategic blindness, pretends it can't hear the maid sobbing into the laundry. Priorities, priorities. Peasants aren't spared the double feature. You flirt with a girl behind the granary and presto, a 9-month countdown to either shotgun matrimony or public penance, so humiliating even the goats avert their gaze. And should you attempt the denial as a river strategy, beware, midwives keep better receipts than royal accountants. Of course, if inconvenient evidence arrives and somehow disappears, a hush-hush herbal tea, a desperate night in the woods, then the stakes escalate from rumor to horror movie. Infanticide turns the entire hamlet into CSI Thatch Roof Edition. Torches come out, accusations fly, and mercy is checked at the door. Justice is swift, theatrical, and about as balanced as a 3-legged stool on an ice patch. Now picture the bastard child who does survive. He walks the earth branded with an invisible neon sign, parentage, ? Church doctrine says every soul is precious. Village realpolitik says precious doesn't inherit land or apprenticeship. His resume might read hardworking, polite, can lift 2 sacks of grain, but the fine print screams genetically suspicious, and that trumps everything. Shift scenes again, catapult straight into courtly love country, where knights compose tortured sonnets comparing Lady Eleanor's eyebrows to the wings of celestial swans. Everyone is pining so hard you could build a lumber mill out of the longing. Touching, don't you dare. One real kiss and you've detoured from artful yearning to full-blown heresy. Cue exile. Duel or an unscheduled pilgrimage to whichever holy site is farthest from the jealous husband's sword reach. And where are the troubadours now? Our traveling Spotify playlist is busy trading metaphorical daggers at taverns for ale that tastes like fermented feet. He loves them, they love him, until the money runs out and someone decides satire would be funnier. Satire, however, is a short stroll from sedition, and bishops are notoriously low-humor creatures. One misrhymed roast and the poor bard is hitchhiking to the next county with a black eye and a lute string snapped in protest. Zoom farther in. A monastery cell at dawn. Brother self-flagellation is locked in a torrid mental romance with mortality and the Song of Songs, recited like bedtime erotica for souls. He'll spend the day convincing himself the ache in his chest is holy, yearning not leftover memory of the baker's daughter's smile, and by sunset he'll be carving ornate calligraphy that basically translates to "Jesus, text me back." All the while, the church drafts new bylaws faster than a bard can rhyme love with dove. Clandestine vows outlawed. Cousin weddings? Ew, no, unless you're a king in need of a politically convenient loophole. Then maybe we can chat about dispensations. Intimacy calendars get published. These are the acceptable nights. These are the forbidden nights. And for goodness sake, keep the candles dim, because candlelight breeds enthusiasm, and that's basically the devil doing jazz hands in your bedroom. Yet somehow, people keep falling face first into feelings. A stolen kiss in the barley, a carved heart on the underside of a pew, a widow who refuses to remarry, and instead secretly owns the most thriving turnip plot in 3 parishes. For every rule etched in ecclesiastical stone, there's a human scratching a heart into that same stone when nobody's watching. In the grand ledger of medieval love, penalties might outweigh privileges, but passion pays in a currency bureaucracy can't mint. Whispered names in the dark, bread crusts tucked into pockets for someone else's supper, tiny rebellions that say, yes, the world is terrifying, but for one moment I chose warmth over fear. And that warmth, ridiculous as it is, keeps resurfacing in poems that survive cathedral fires, in baptismal records that quietly adjust a birth date by a suspicious month, in gravestones where 2 spouses share a single awkward epitaph, because space is pricey and sentiment stubborn. Love outlives plague years, outsmarts inquisitors, and plants itself like a dandelion in every crack of doctrine. So as the candle gutter flutters, and your eyelids weigh more than chainmail, remember, history didn't run on sword strokes alone. It ran on heartbeats, quick and reckless, sneaking through the parchment margins like footnotes written in invisible ink. Let that thought cradle you down into sleep. Even in centuries built from cold stone, someone somewhere was always reaching for a hand in the dark, and sometimes, impossibly, they found it. Picture that scandal, freshly buried in the diocesan filing cabinet, a parchment corpse tucked beneath 40 other sins, stretching, yawning, and doing push-ups in the dark like it's training for a comeback tour. Centuries from now, some equally nosy descendant will rummage through the bishop's archives, spot your name, and gasp loud enough to wake the saints. Congratulations, you're medieval clickbait. Doesn't matter if you spent the next 40 years churning butter for orphans and rescuing kittens from moat water. The footnote beside your name still reads, export grade hanky-panky. You're a cautionary fresco, painted in permanent wagging finger colors. And that's the secret engine of the whole era, collective memory on caffeine. Villagers can't remember which day they're supposed to fast, but they'll remember exactly how many buttons were undone on the night you allegedly misbehaved behind the grain mill, and they'll pass that intel down like prize sourdough starter. Listen closely in the tavern, and you'll hear your legend morph with every retelling. First you smiled too long, then you kissed the cooper's daughter. 2 ales later, you kidnapped her on a warhorse made of moonlight. By sunrise, you're a half-wolf troubadour who seduced 3 abbesses and 1 goat. Medieval gossip is basically the earliest form of patch notes. Every time the story respawns, it gains +2 scandal, -1 factual accuracy, and a brand new subplot about heresy. Meanwhile, the church is busy updating its operating system. Patch 12.0, now offering premium indulgences. Use code SIMFREE at confession for 10% off your penance. By the way, we're expanding the forbidden cousin radius again. Turns out you're related to everyone within 2 rivers and a medium-sized hedgehog. Sorry, marry a stranger or marry no one. Those are your user-friendly options. Cue the penitential parade. Medieval edition, you barefoot, head shaved into what can only be described as the worst monk cut since bowl cuts were invented. Clutching a candle the size of an anaconda while everyone chants the sinner's version of happy birthday. Hot wax drips on your knuckles. You wince. The kids in the front row snicker. It's basically community theater where humiliation is the ticket price. But hey, at least you're not that guy. The priest who got transferred so many times he has a frequent sinner punch card. 9 more relocations and he wins a free reliquary. Parishioners greet him like a bad omen. Ah, Father Samaritan, remind me to keep my daughters in the locked cupboard. Across the estate, Lady Eleanor of the perpetual eye roll is hiding love notes from Sir Poetic Indigestion inside hymnals. He waxes on about thy beauty that striketh like righteous lightning, when really she just wants to know if he can fix the manor's leaking roof. Priorities, my dude. Sir Poetic responds with another 28-stanza masterpiece titled Ode to Damp Ceiling and Your Ankle, Milady. And Eleanor wonders if maybe the stable boy who speaks exactly 7 words a day is the superior conversationalist. Meanwhile, actual peasants are over in the mud puddle of reality, trying to keep children alive past the teething DLC. They measure romance in survival metrics. She only yelled at me once today? Bliss. Even their compliments are utilitarian. Thy cough appears marginally less plaguey, my love. Shakespeare it ain't, but it gets the job done. Fast forward to a village dispute. 3 families feuding because somebody's pig got frisky in the wrong meadow. Local justice looks like 2 angry uncles brandishing turnip forks, while the reeve tries to mediate with a Latin phrase he doesn't fully understand. Before you know it, someone dredges up your decade-old barn escapade as irrefutable evidence that your lineage is morally squishy. Turns out reputations are the medieval version of gum. Step in once, drag it for miles. And just when you think the chaos meter can't climb higher, a traveling relic show rolls into town with half a saint's elbow and a marketing strategy. Everyone lines up, pays a penny, kisses glass, prays for fertility, plague immunity, and maybe nicer weather for threshing. The relic doesn't fix anything, but it does distract folks from remembering you flashed ankles at the Midsummer Fair in 1282. Small mercies. Night falls again. You, now gray-haired and arthritic, sit by the hearth sharpening a scythe that's older than your grandson's. Outside, younger villagers trade rumors under moonlight, and you swear you hear your own scandal recited like folklore. You almost correct them. Actually, it was the cooper's niece, not his daughter, but why bother? Let the legend breathe. In a world where death certificates read God's will, probably being remembered for something, anything is a weird badge of glory.
Because here's the cosmic punchline. After all the sermons, the penances, the clucking tongues, and bloodline audits, love still keeps popping up like dandelions in a monastery garden. You can weed, you can scold, you can pave the courtyard in sanctified limestone, but one spring drizzle later, and boom, another yellow bloom staring the abbot right in the face, whispering, "Surprise, holiness, I'm back." So as your candle burns low, centuries later, under an entirely different roof, where electricity hums instead of choir chants. Remember the cast of medieval mischief makers who paved your lullaby, the peasant couple who swapped turnips like valentines, the knight who equated unrequited love with upper body strength training, the nun who wrote fan fiction starring Jesus as her dream date, and you, eternal scandal magnet, still teaching future listeners that infamy is just intimacy that lost its receipt. Now breathe out, let the gossip fade like distant bells. The village can keep its ledger, the church can keep its scrolls, the relic peddler can keep his questionable elbow. You keep the heartbeat thumping, messy, inconveniently hopeful. Wrap yourself in that, drift into sleep, and let history's most persistent rumor that love is worth the trouble hum softly under your dreams until morning.